Seeking validation feels harmless until it starts running your life. You check if she saw your story. You change your tone to be liked. You hold back truth just to fit in. And little by little, you stop leading and start performing. Because validation doesn't make you stronger, it makes you dependent. On attention, on approval, on being seen a certain way. But here's the truth. The more you need validation, the more you weaken your edge. Not because attention is wrong, but because needing it costs your center. This video will break the pattern. You'll stop seeking approval and start commanding respect. Let's begin. You can spot a man addicted to validation by how often he edits himself. He overthinks every message. He avoids confrontation. He gives compliments hoping to get them back. And it's not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like being nice, supportive, agreeable. The guy who's always there. But underneath that kindness is need. The need to be liked, to be accepted, to never ruffle feathers or risk disapproval. And that need is exactly what makes him forgettable. Because a man who constantly seeks to be liked rarely ends up respected. Validation seeking is rarely about the people in front of you. It's about the fear behind you. Fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear that if you don't perform just right, you'll be left behind. So you adjust, you shrink, you trade your truth for comfort. But that comfort is temporary, because every time you mute your voice to gain approval, you reinforce the belief that your real self isn't enough. That's the lie validation feeds. And the more you feed it, the more you abandon yourself, one quiet moment at a time. When a man seeks validation, women don't feel safe around him. They feel responsible for him. She senses the pressure behind his compliments, the silent need in his eyes, the way his confidence depends on her reaction. And that's not attractive. It's heavy, because she doesn't want to mother a man's self-worth. She wants to feel his stability. And other men, they don't respect the one always fishing for approval. They sense the lack, the insecurity, the desperation behind the smile. That's how validation seeking weakens everything. It dilutes your masculinity. It cheapens your presence. It repels the very connection you think it will buy. The moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you start reclaiming authority. You stop asking, did they like that? Did I sound okay? Am I coming across the right way? And you start asking, was that true to me? Did I speak from alignment? Would I say it the same, even if no one clapped? That shift is quiet, but powerful, because now your identity isn't built on reactions, it's built on standards. And when your internal compass becomes stronger than external approval, your energy becomes undeniable. People don't just hear you, they listen. Because they feel what you're saying isn't rehearsed, it's real. Confidence isn't volume, it's alignment. It's not in how loud you speak, it's in how little you need to. It's not in how many people approve, it's in how clear you are when no one does. That kind of confidence comes when your actions match your values, regardless of the outcome. You don't chase applause, you don't explain every boundary, you don't shrink yourself when you're misunderstood, because you're not here to please the room, you're here to lead yourself through it. And when you walk that way, people feel it. They don't just agree with you, they respect you, not because you asked for it, but because you never needed it in the first place. To stop needing validation, you have to stop monitoring the room. No more scanning faces for approval. No more adjusting your tone mid-sentence. No more replaying what you said, hoping it landed right. Instead, turn the focus inward. How do you feel about what you just said? Did you move from clarity or insecurity? Did that moment align with who you're building or betray it? That internal feedback loop is how you build self-respect. Because when you validate yourself in real time, you stop outsourcing your worth. And that's when the world starts reacting differently to you, without you trying. When you stop chasing validation, your presence changes. You speak slower because you're not rushing to be accepted. You listen deeper because you're not waiting to impress. You walk differently because your energy doesn't ask for permission anymore. And that shift, it's magnetic. Not because you're louder, but because you're anchored. Not because you're trying, but because you're aligned. Women feel it, men respect it, rooms adjust to it. Not because you've become arrogant, but because you've become self-led, and nothing draws attention more than someone who doesn't need it. The real test comes when validation disappears. She leaves you on red. You get criticized. The crowd doesn't clap. That's when most men collapse. They over-explain, they overperform, they overthink what they should have said. But the self-led man, he holds frame. He doesn't need to fix the silence. He doesn't chase the compliment. He doesn't spiral because the world didn't clap, because his center isn't up for negotiation. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. People start respecting you more when you don't beg for it. They sense the difference. They adjust to your groundedness. You break the validation habit the same way you built it, through repetition. But now, it's intentional. You speak your truth, then sit in the discomfort that follows. You let the silence stretch without rushing to fill it. You let disapproval happen and stay rooted anyway. That discomfort, it's not weakness, it's withdrawal. Because your nervous system is detoxing from years of external approval. And every time you resist the urge to chase it, you build internal weight. Eventually, your system adjusts. Validation stops feeling like oxygen, and self-respect starts feeling like home. That's when you don't just act confident, you become untouchable. When you stop needing validation, your relationships transform. You stop people-pleasing, you stop overgiving, you stop losing yourself to be liked. Now you say what you mean, and mean what you say. Now you leave when your peace is threatened. Now you connect from overflow, not from emptiness. Women feel safer around you, not because you're agreeable, but because you're clear. Men follow your lead, not because you dominate, but because you don't waver. And internally, you feel lighter, sharper, unshakable. Because for the first time, you're not living for applause. You're living from alignment. And nothing moves stronger than a man who doesn't need to be seen, because he already sees himself. You kill the need for validation by becoming the kind of man who validates himself. Through discipline, through presence, through truth spoken without apology. You're not for everyone, and that's your power. You don't beg to be chosen. You choose yourself daily. You don't build confidence through praise. You build it through alignment. And when you live this way, you don't just earn respect, you embody it. If you're building this kind of grounded presence, subscribe and turn on the bell. The next video will help you sharpen inner authority and lead in silence without chasing approval again. A man who doesn't need validation becomes dangerous in the best way. He's immune to flattery, unmoved by rejection, unshaken by silence. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he doesn't fold. He knows who he is. He knows what he stands on. And he knows that worth isn't proven through others, it's lived internally. That's when you stop being performative and start being powerful. No more seeking the nod. No more fishing for likes. No more needing the room to say you're enough. Because now, you know it, and you move like it. The day you stop seeking validation is the day your energy gets clean. You don't overtalk. You don't overshare. You don't bend to be accepted. You show up whole. You speak with weight. You lead with presence. That's what makes you stand out. Not because you tried, but because you didn't need to. What's one moment this week where you caught yourself seeking validation? And how will you respond differently next time? Drop it in the comments. If this landed, don't miss How to Kill Emotional Dependency and Regain Your Power and Master Emotional Control like a Stoic. They'll harden your frame, sharpen your presence, and help you lead without ever chasing approval again.